and distortion and destruction, but that's where we fucking exist. Hi, it's Sunday morning, and we're gonna force ourselves to give a fuck right now. Just gonna leap into it. Eric, you got a question about hey Diana, jump on Twitch and just make sure this is Clusterfuck is actually streaming. You've got a question about copyright. Shoot.
Yeah, just a couple questions about copywriting. I've copyrighted before. It's a pain in the ass.
What do you mean by copyright? Expand on that for me.
Getting the legal rights for your music. I know.
How did you do that?
Well, once you create your song, it's legally yours anyway.
Yes.
But you don't have proof of it. So going through copyright.gov and going through the process of legally getting the rights to your music so nobody can use your stuff for their own profit.
Okay.
Like it's expensive, and if you're putting just singles out, you have to pay each time. Is there different ways what's the best process to go through it and the cheapest maybe?
Okay. All right. Well, here's an interesting thing. And Diana, let me know if you can see shit and we're actually streaming, because if we're not... Oh, we are. Cool, thanks. Thank you, Rob. I know that on some copyright crews, for example, APRA, you can do this. You can actually upload the song as well. And I think that is a part of your copyright. I am so confused by copyright. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm pretty sure you can do that with ASCAP. Are you an ASCAP or a BMI member?
I believe ASCAP, yeah.
Great. Well, you might want to look into it, because I think ASCAP already gives that. I could be wrong. Yeah. But, yeah, my understanding is as soon as you have the song, as soon as you've written the song, as soon as XYZ, you are legally protected, and there's proof and evidence of that song under your jurisdiction existing as per certain publishing dates. And also send yourself an email, because in the olden days, you'd write out the score, and then you'd put it in the post and receive that letter from yourself with a copy of the score in it, and then it was legally yours too.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing people forget about with legal shit is that it's all fun and games, but then when people start lawyering up, it really comes down to, can you afford a lawyer? I wish I could give better news, but I don't know. If anybody else wants to jump in on that question, Aaron, I see your hand. If you have information specific to this, please
yes,
go
sir.
Shoot.
So I was in school for cinema and television, so it kind of bleeds in with similar, whether it be like, I guess, in our case, it's scripts, but it could be in anybody else's case, like proof of album, concept, or lyrics, just like Carl said. Post it to yourself, but don't break the seal. That's the advice that I was given. So that way they got some manner of timestamp or a date stamped on there when it got notarized and when it got sent to the post, and it just arrives to you unbroken. And then that's the poor man's copyright is one of the routes. So, yeah.
Crazy. Rob, you probably have a whole bunch of information on this, and I'd love to hear you talk about this horrific hell. Go.
Yeah, I went through that in the early 90s with the whole post it to yourself thing and operating a home studio. That's what I used to do all the time. So I'd make 2 copies. I'd make one for the artist, and I'd keep one unopened and keep it in my kind of little safe, if you like. But once I got into more legal jobs in my career, I realized that that's only a proof of origin. It doesn't necessarily protect you when you go to court, because if somebody makes a lot of money when they've registered their song, the reality is that they're just going to walk all over you. So because of money. So it gets really difficult. And legally, it's kind of like protecting intellectual property and patents. If you have a, I'm hearing an echo. If you have protection, it generally is going to cost you money to have protection. and that's not something that artists can always afford unless they're under a label. So be careful. Most people don't spend money on protection. They'll just register it somehow. And I posted a link for songregistration.com. That's a place that you can register music, and it's not for free, but it's still going to be cheaper than lawyering up, if you like, or going down that route of having a proper label. But yeah, it's pretty dicey. I've never been in any kind of dispute, but you'll see that digital rights is more prevalent now than the old-fashioned method of mailing it to yourself, and digital rights seems to be more actionable because people can actually switch your music off from their service provider, and that has a bigger impact on your day-to-day, because if you can't play your shit because somebody has a claim against you, well, then that sucks. But there is a lot of law about snippets as well. Like, you can have snippets of so many seconds of video, of audio in your production, and it's permissible. As soon as you exceed that period of that duration, then you have a problem. And the best way to cover your ass is just to identify your sources. So if you've sampled something or you've copied a melody, make sure you put that in your credits, that you use this person's work. And generally speaking, the artist will like, I don't give a shit. Cool. But if you're making a lot of money, that's when the shit hits the fan. That's when people want your money, and that's when you need to have a lawyer, son.
Got the reference. Thank you. I don't know if that helps. And this comes back to my thing on using other people's music or lyrics. I mean, any form of recorded property. Don't use stuff out of movies. Just don't do it, because it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to do it. The whole concept of sampling is very changed, but I don't even want to talk about sampling. Did we answer your question, Eric?
Yes and no. I have seen all this, and again, old school, like I've mailed stuff to myself before too, but I always heard that it wasn't 100% legal to protect. I'm talking more about protecting your own music that you're creating as opposed to using other artists' product. But yeah, I was just wondering, in the digital world, it's just like just throwing songs up, and just what if something becomes a hit and you don't legally have the rights for it, and there's no way. I mean, you can prove it like doing song registration, but as opposed to actually holding up in court if something ever, like one of us just blew up, and I mean, Carl was already big, but one of us, maybe getting bigger, and just not having your rights protected. But I mean, outside of just legally paying, like I think it's like $55 or something, and if it's a song
for one
or
song.
Yep. Yeah, they charge the same amount. I've never done one song. I've done albums before. Like I've done them because it's $55 then to do whatever amount of songs you have on your album. But I'm starting to go the route now of just putting songs out, trying to get to the next album. And I don't want to pay $55 for every. I don't have that money. I don't think anybody has that money to do for every song and to protect it.
Thank you, Vince. I see your hand.
Okay. I imagine that if you have somebody rip your stuff off and they make money on it, you wouldn't need more than the original file to go to court to prove that yours existed first.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if necessarily spending that kind of money on copywriting is that valuable if you're not already making a decent amount of money.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you have the original file proving that the date was done first.
Yeah.
And a lawyer.
Yeah. Well. Let's see, if somebody else steals your stuff and they're making money on it, then you just make them pay for the lawyer.
Great. Good idea. That's excellent. Julius, what are you thinking?
Hello, everyone. I agree with Vince. Hi. You do need the original file, and you will probably have witnesses because you might have sent demos to someone or have the mastering guy master your stuff. So yeah. No?
Maybe, I don't know. I just don't know because I hear so many conflicting things, and I see people, they have the songs in emails, they email it to themselves, they have an authenticated service saying stamped on this date, and then I see other people, when they put it on their Patreon, it's got a broadcast date, and then they register it with DistroKid. Excuse me. All of this stuff that would assume that the time date has been this song in its form currently with these bass lines, these lyrics, and these melodies existed on that date, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know. This is, I guess, something that, you know, you'll have to... what state are you in, Eric?
I'm in Colorado right now.
Okay, I asked you that last week, and I went, well, man, you're in Colorado, really? And I didn't remember. A week went past, and I forgot.
Yeah.
Don't take that personally.
Never.
No, because I still call my wife Sharon. Her name's Raphael. It's like, who's Sharon? I went, I don't know. I don't know anybody named Sharon. I guess that's you now, Sharon. And she keeps saying that's not my name, but I forget. There would have to be the Colorado arts law or something, because in California there's the Californian arts law, and it's made for artists, as in most people who are artists are poor. So there are a bunch of copyright-related lawyers who will look after you on stuff like this, and you pay a yearly fee. It might even be $55. I think it is $55 in California, and they've helped me out on quite a few things. And sometimes you might have a really dumb question, and they'll answer it like that, and it's free, or it might cost you $10 or something. But also, if you want to go down that terrifying thing of getting a patent done, you know, patenting your name or whatever, or patenting leather, or patenting the walls in your apartment, they will charge a lower fee. Then So I was helping somebody get their name copyrighted, and it's not just the name as it exists as a performance thing. That's one. The other one is also getting it done for your t-shirts and your merchandising and all that jazz. And they found a lawyer who was, I'm the industrial lawyer and I look after you guys. And it was horrendously expensive. And then I found Arts Law, and they were like a quarter of the price. It was still like $500 or $600 or something, but I don't know. I'm talking a lot right now. Rob, what you got?
I just wanted to clarify that. So any lyrics and music and anything created and written down generally is covered by a copyright, and it's automatic on publishing, but you still need to have a third party, an independent third party, basically back you up. So traditionally it was the post office, the US mail or whatever would back you up with postage stamp, but tamper issues and stuff like that, I think a lot of the courts went away from that a little bit, and they preferred to have an independent, either an attorney or a registration service. But if you're talking about your logos, and even your name as a band, that can actually be trademarked. So a trademark is a little bit different to copyright because it's an image representation, and this is probably more important because if you're trying to represent yourself as a producer or a band and you have an image or an identity, when you market with that identity, not with your lyrics. And you don't want people hammering you on having a similar logo or the same name as them, and any chance of confusion or misrepresentation. Not that it would happen with the band name, but sometimes they get picky about the graphic, and so getting a trademark done is pretty much a once-off, and it's an easy process to get that done. But you still need to have somebody help you through that process. Patents are really not applicable to the music industry unless you're manufacturing a synthesizer or something like that, and they actually take the design and you patent the design, and that is an expensive process because you've got to go into production and you've got to have protections in each country. What's interesting is US copyright law is meant to be based on British Crown law, and in that regard there's a lot of similarity, but you've got to be careful that some countries don't actually have the same rules. And I think to Carl's point, there's probably associations that represent you better locally than getting advice from numbnuts like us.
Yes. And thank you. I did mean to say trademark, but I said patent. It's a Sharon thing. Aaron, I see you. Thank you, Rob. You are a legend. Aaron, what do you got?
Just in that vein, I don't know if maybe in the subtext of Bandcamp or SoundCloud, maybe they have something in there to help protect the artist. I think that might be worth poking around at, but I'm not sure. Just want to throw that out there.
Good fun. You know, talking about law makes me feel like I'm in trouble, and it makes me feel like I'm being dragged up to the principal's office.
You are being judged, sir.
Yeah. I hate lawyers. I got my green card. I actually collected. I know. Oh my God, Rob, your hand's still up. What do you got?
I still haven't got mine. We just sent a letter to Congress to try to get ours expedited. We're in the last phase. We did the biometrics. We just got to do the final interview, but it's been 10 freaking years.
So you're a green card?
Not yet. I'm just about to.
Same with me. 10 years.
That's crazy.
Can I wanted to ask you about this. I want to talk about immigration for a minute. I really wish that every American knew what it was like. Actually, every fucking person knew what it was like to be an alien and to be denied entry into a country and to be stuck in no man's land, which is just before walking through airport security. To know the feeling of the rug being pulled out from under you, and you go, oh my God. And going through the immigration process. And, you know, it's not just America. I've heard horror stories. I used to work in immigration in Australia. It was awful. And England and Germany and. It's a horrible, horrible experience. It's degrading. And it's, I don't know. Yeah, 10 years, man. I know exactly how you feel. I saw this really interesting thing with John Oliver, actually. And, you know, John Oliver. And he was just saying... and he became a citizen, and he said it was a horrible experience beyond words. Rob, I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, that's set a nice downer tone to today's event, Carl. I really appreciate it.
Legalities, then legalities. So, does anybody have another question? How do I get out of this quagmire? Anyone? Really? Jesus fucking Christ. Amazing. I wanted to throw something out about songwriting. And that is...
Hey.
Yeah? Okay. My question in regard to songwriting was... on the subject of really great happiness, I've been going through some depression. And the difficulty with depression and songwriting, like songwriting is all about making decisions. And in that decision, you have to be, you know, I'm all about being clear-minded, not too caffeinated, definitely not drunk or on drugs, because you can't make a clear decision. But when you're depressed, it's really hard to be able to say, yes, this song is good. And yes, this idea is strong, because I'm feeling so down about myself, and, you know, I am fucking depressed. And it's really interesting how it's times like that that I, there's a checklist I have that is the bass line logical? Is it a logical bass line? Yes. And it's apt to the song that you're doing. Are the lyricals good? Yes, they are good, or they do need work. Like, actually, they need work. Is the beat, does it make you bop? And I have to, it's like flying through clouds in a plane and all you got are the dials. You can't see the horizon, you can't see the mountains, you've got the dials. And it struck me how important it is to have an understanding of your dials in your aircraft as you are flying through the cloud trying not to smash into mountains. Because you don't know if it's good or not. That's all I got. Does anybody else want to add something right now? Aaron.
I think you need that person that's brutally honest in your life. Like, you need that friend or a couple of friends to where you're like, I want to send you something, whether it be lyrics, concept, video, song, and you need to let me know if it sucks, And sometimes you got to be willing to take that on board, or just get real feedback from your actual friends that aren't just going to pat you on the back. I found that to be a good metric because when I'm talking to people about Graham, I'm like, does this even make sense, or am I just spinning my wheels? But I just think you need good sounding boards. You need people to help your main objective.
That's good. I want to come back to that. Can you remind me? I just want to throw to Vince really quickly. Can you remind me to talk about sounding boards and the value of your opinion and your tastes? Vince, go.
Actually, I was going to continue on that with the sounding board. I wanted to say that I think sometimes it helps to have someone who's going to be brutally honest with you, who's not necessarily into the kind of thing you make, but they understand what you're going for. Because they're more likely to give you a more logical answer as far as what you're missing or where you may have gone wrong or what you did right.
Okay. That's great in practice. Here's my experience with that, and like, I'm not disagreeing or anything. For some people, it would be a great thing to have that. I have so much trouble trusting people, and if I have a piece of music that is in, I don't know what's wrong with this music. The one thing I've learnt about music is the most important thing I have is my opinion. Is my opinion and my tastes and my choices and my decisions, because it's my music. And that's the only thing to guide the ship. Yes, there's a danger of wanking and as they say, putting your head up your ass. But that's the only true metric I have. Going back to, but what if you lose that? My problem, and this is me personally, so, I'm not dissing, what you've said, because it's very valid. My problem is that when somebody says to me, oh, you need to stop using guitars, or there's too many guitars, or goth DJs don't like guitars, or they'll plant something in my head, and I'll go, oh, okay, I'll stop using guitars. For some reason, when somebody says something to me, I just go, oh, okay. Oh, you know more about this than I do. Okay, and I do it. And I don't know why the fuck I do that. Like, I'm Mr. Hey, everyone, fuck off. But when somebody close to me makes a decision and makes a thing, a statement, a suggestion, I'll say no. I'll say, oh, yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that. And it got to the point years and years ago where I went, I can't listen to people anymore. I cannot let them in. Nothing to do with what they're saying. What they're saying, it comes from love and it comes from constructive and they want to do something purpose. But I'm going to go, oh yeah, okay, I'll do that. I am very fortunate that I have a very few group of people who I really trust, and they've been following Angelspit for fucking since the beginning. And they know the lyrics better than I do, and they know the guitar riffs better than I do because, hey, Sharon. And they'll say to me, you've used that lyric before, or you've used that guitar riff before. And they are a good sounding board, but you know, there's the story about the little mouse that went around going, I want to be big and strong. So I asked the bull how to get big and strong, and the bull says, you eat hay. And then he said, I want to be fast. So I'm going to ask the rabbit, how do I be fast? Oh, you eat roots. Oh, I want to be a good hunter. So I'll ask the cat, what do I do to be a good hunter? And the cat goes, you eat mice. When you ask anybody else, they are going to sprinkle in their their opinion. And coming back at that, when somebody asks me, I try so hard not to. But my problem is that I will talk to them from the perspective of a record label guy. So I'm going to talk to them about, if you want this song to go somewhere and really travel, do this. Or you should consider doing this. Maybe they don't fucking want to, or maybe they're the market that they're interested or the people they want to attract don't give a shit about that stuff. So I recognize I'm biased as fuck. Julius, I think your hand was up first. Go.
First off, I totally feel you, Carl. I have the same thing, like asking for advice and instantly following the advice, mostly, without even questioning it. And let me try to analyze this. If this does not apply to you, it's okay, just cut me off. But for me, I think it doesn't matter if you're in the industry, if you have been in the industry for 15, 20 years, 1 year. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. I think for some people, there is still self-doubt. There is still this little child who wants to be liked and have their stuff liked. Like this little child who has built a sandcastle and ask their friends, does this look good? Does it need another tower? If you know what I mean.
Eric, I think you were next, and then Mark, you go.
Usually, I suffer with this a lot. I really don't like my stuff, and I'll put it away for almost the opposite, Carl. Like I'll put my stuff away for 2 weeks sometimes. If I'm just struggling with a song or I don't like it at all, I just won't even I don't want to deal with it, so I'll just put it away. Then 2 weeks later, whenever I'm in a better mood or I'm coming around to it, I'm just like, oh, this is good. Or sometimes it's shit, and then you have to make those decisions. Fortunately, I have a wife who is a huge, just like us, music. She's a music head. She's not a musician, but
Sharon, I've met her.
Sharon, yeah. Shirley, actually, pretty close. She has a really good ear for hearing things. So having her bounce feedback to me after, like, sometimes I don't hear something. And being a musician that does everything by yourself, that plays all the instruments, you don't have that other person to bounce ideas off of, like in a band or you're working with somebody. So having somebody, a partner that can hear it, and she doesn't necessarily know what it is, the technical aspect, but she'll be like, there's a tingy thing in the chorus I don't like. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. The tingy thing in the chorus she doesn't like. So I'll go in and I'll fix it to, like, she'll hear it and she'll just make it sounds a lot better. I think so, having somebody that you're close with, that I'm fortunate to, that you can bounce that off of and not necessarily know what it is that's wrong, but she hears something that's not clicking correctly. Having that advice, I think, helps me out a ton. That's all.
That's a really good point. I want to circle back to that when people give emotional responses to what you're playing. But for now, Mark, what do you got?
So my thing is, when you want to get a good idea out of several people, well, a good impression out of several people about something, I prefer the method of asking several people and then seeing what common things show up. Because obviously, people give you their biased opinion, but usually there's things in common. Like a lot of people are like, I don't like the bass line or something. And then they may throw something else on there. But if everyone's saying the bass line, then I should probably look into that. That's it.
That's really relevant, man. Just as a sideline, I don't mind if today turns into everybody complaining, because I've been having a bit of a bitch day, because I've been reading a lot online, and there's a lot of people who are really down right now. Like, I put a thing on saying, hey, if you're depressed, say I. And I got a whole bunch of people So if you want to just vent today, because it's normally let's do. If you feel like having a vent, let's just fucking have a vent. I want to come back to you, Eric, about that's a really good point. Especially with people who don't know, a lot of musicality. It's really fascinating when somebody goes, the song makes me kind of feel like this or like this, and you then have to interpret that into the notes and your choices. And I've commented before, when people would use words like muddy or bitey or brittle, they're actually possibly some of the most helpful comments you can get from people, because muddy, I've mentioned before, is kind of 400, 800, and brittle is kind of like 4K. It sounds like a telephone in my ear like this. That sort of thing is really, really, really good. So thank you for that. Vince, hit me with your rhythm stick.
On the subject of people giving a song makes me feel responses to your music, I don't think that those are responses you need to consider when you're writing. Because what it makes them feel has nothing to do with what you're doing.
Okay, expand on that. I don't agree or disagree. I like that. Expand.
Music is an entirely personal experience, no matter who you are. When you listen to a song, it's gonna make you feel however it makes you feel. It's art. That's what art's supposed to do. So if somebody tells you that your song makes them feel a certain way, that's something in them. It has nothing to do with the song you made. Yes, granted, certain chord structures and certain notes are going to evoke certain emotions in most people, but not everyone's going to have the same reaction. So you can't necessarily take an emotional response as any kind of real feedback.
Great.
As far as your production process goes.
That's really interesting. Also, because we're having a bitch and a wah today, it's called a wah. WAAA. Wah! Because we're having a wah day, don't worry about the hands. Just jump in. Rob.
Wah!
I knew you'd get it.
Yeah, this is an interesting topic, because it also comes back to fellow musicians working together and having arguments all the time about what they think sounds good and how they want the song to go. And I typically support another artist, so they'll be missing stuff, and they'll say, I want accompaniment and I want a drum beat and blah blah blah, and I'll listen to their stuff and I'll try to feel what their message is based on their lyrics or their style or whatever. And sometimes I'll go to the wider audience. I'll ask the audience, bing, and I'll get my kids to listen to it, because they're like 19 and 17 and they like all genres of music. And I'll ask them, what really connects with you with this track? And it'll help me better understand where the original artist is coming from, so I can, kind of back them up. And quite often I have disagreements with the original artist, because I feel something completely different to what they're trying to express. And I want to go down my route, and they are saying, no, stop. That's not what I intended to do. It's like, okay, cool. I'll try to fit in with your genre and what your style is and what you're trying to achieve. But personally, I'll feel that it's a different route, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I'm sure, I've never been in a band without alcohol or drugs. And that's important, because when you're all mellow and you're just jamming and improvising, you all get along and it's fun. But if everyone's, not that I do drugs anymore, that was just when I was younger with a home studio, but when everyone's dead serious and you're on a time crunch, pressures build up and people feel like they have to achieve something sooner, and that's very destructive to creativity. And if you start to have bantering with somebody about why you think it sounds good and why it doesn't sound good, it truly is an obstruction. And I kind of agree with Underminer that you got to do it yourself, how you feel it, and don't take in those other attitudes until you're happy with what you've done. And that way it's coming from you. You shouldn't let people tell you, oh, you should be going this direction over here. And it's like, well, you're not the artist. I'm the artist, and this is how I plan to do it, and that's how I'm going to do it. And having somebody's feedback about how the song feels is helpful, but it shouldn't be driving the direction of your composition. I think the mixing and the mastering opinion is completely separate again. Like, oh, there's this annoying tick, or there's a hum in the background, or the lead's too loud, I can't hear the vocals, or the frequency bands are interfering with each other. That's a completely different situation as well. I think there's a creative process, and then there's the finishing, the mixing and mastering. And opinions in both of those are important, but I would suggest that getting the opinions on how to better polish your product is more important than the people getting in your face and telling you that you suck and that you should be doing completely different.
I wish. Thank you, man. That was great. And remember, mics are open, so just jump in. I remember I used to be in a band. Like, do you remember when we used to have bands and we used to write stuff in a rehearsal studio at very loud volume? And my one regret, because believe it or not, I'm a bit of a bossy bastard. Who would have guessed? I know, and I really wish that I would have a thing where I'd always listen and I go, okay, sure, let's try that, see where it goes. But I really wish that we took it in turns to be the father, because we were three blokes, the father of that track, and what Dad says goes. I wish that I knew about that way of working in a band democracy, because I think it was Ozzy Osbourne said every band is a perfect democracy led by a dictator. But I think that dictator's got to change hats. Everyone has to have a turn at being the dictator. And yeah. That's all just so crazy. Like, as far as emotion and how far into the darkness you want to get. Anybody feel free to jump in right now.
Go ahead, Diana.
That's okay. I don't. It's hard to say, but maybe accountability partner. I've said this before. Somebody you just check in with to say, okay, you have your checklist, and they just ask, hey, have you done these things lately? Just to kind of check it. So it's not getting feedback or anything, but more keeping you on task, I guess. Sometimes that helps. Because I can write all the checklists I want, but sometimes I need that little extra voice on my shoulder to check in that, I'm doing this all myself, but, that, hey, have you done this, and this lately? Just a thought.
Cool.
That's it.
I wanted to touch on something Aussie Rob mentioned too. There is a difference in my head, as well as the creative process and the finishing process. And whether Hemingway said this or not, it's debatable. He probably didn't. But the whole write drunk, edit sober type thing, it works for me. Not all the time. And I mean, and the difference between like drunk and drunk is completely different. I think very logically, and I think very sometimes it's too this way, and my creative process gets blocked by that. So sometimes having a shot or two for me personally just lets me loosen up and be like, okay, now I'm starting to flow, it's going. Sometimes I go a little overboard, but like I never go back and do any kind of like EQing or mixing under the influence of anything. That's always sober. Sometimes with my creative process, I need that, or I'm in Colorado, a gummy or whatever it is. I need that something to loosen me up a bit and get that creative process going. With the creative process, and then the finishing process is always never, in my opinion, don't do that under the influence of anything, because that does alter the way you hear things and the way you will perceive and fix things. Out.
Thank you. I stopped drinking in the process of creating an album. The first 3 Angelspit albums, I would have I had a cocktail for every fucking album. And actually, if you care, I won't say what. Actually, Nurse Grenade was what we call goon, a bag of goon. You know, Rob, how do I interpret goon into American?
It's a goon is a colloquialistic term for flagon, and a flagon is what some folks in Australia referred to as the bag of cheap wine. So if you're going to have a goon, it means you're going to basically go to the store, buy the cheapest possible inflatable liquid bag that you can get full of alcohol, go and sulk by yourself, drink it all, and then if you've got the breath, you blow it up as a pillow and you go and sleep wherever the hell you are. It could be on the street corner, or it could be in the park, but it's a beautiful thing.
It's the more reasons why Australia is the greatest country in the world. Rob, I have a question for you. Have you ever played Wheel of Goon?
No, I feel I've missed something in my life.
Okay, well, let me explain to you what Wheel of Goon is. So now we know what goon is. So in Australia, there's a thing called a Hills hoist, and it's used to dry your clothes out on. It's a drying rack, but it's this square with a thing up the middle of it, and you wind it up and it goes round and round, and you only wind it up like about half a foot, but that half a foot makes all the difference because that's where the air exists that will dry your clothes out faster, because it just does. It's a Hills hoist thing. Jump on Google right now. And what Wheel of Goon was, and because it would spin around, the wind would blow it and things would spin around, la 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 la, it would catch the sun, all that jazz. 15 feet across, every house had a Hills hoist. In fact, there's probably someone who's like a Hills hoist baron in Australia, and they're pig bloody rich because everyone's got a Hills hoist. But Wheel of Goon was when you would get said bag of goon, and my bag of choice was port, because I love port. You'd peg it on there. Americans call pegs drying pins, clothespins.
Yeah, clothespins on a clothesline, I guess.
I have to interpret everything. And you'd peg your goon up on the Hills hoist, and you'd put a few ones around, like a white one here and a red one here and maybe port over here, and then you'd get all your friends to stand around the outside of the Hills hoist, around the circumference of the spinning diagonal. Then you'd spin that goddamn wheel, and if it stopped in front of you, you had to take a swig. So you would actually stand there and swig that disgusting shit into your mouth, and everyone would get absolutely caked. Good days. So that was Nurse Grenade.
Pretty sure I saw a porno like that once in the 80s.
Yeah. Crunkhouse had a drink called a Swiss Tan, and a Swiss Tan was 2 parts vodka, 1 part Kahlua, 1 part Frangelico. Blood Death Ivory, because it was in Berlin, it was absinthe and Vexi Cola. What's it called, Julius? The German cola?
What are we looking for?
There's a German cola, German Coca-Cola, something cola, Vexicola.
Fritz Cola, Vita Cola.
Vita Cola! Or what's the other one?
Fritz Cola.
Yeah, it was Vita Cola. And horribly cheap Polish or Czech absinthe. And Hideous and Perfect was Cocksucking Cowboys, which are butterscotch schnapps with Bailey's chocolate cream on the top. And then when I got to America, I just stopped drinking. And this is what's really interesting, because I'm at the process now, and if anybody wants to talk, just cut me off because I'm rambling. I'm now at the process of finishing up this current wedge of songs, putting them into an album, and Patreon guys, you've heard them all, and you'll be hearing all of them actually this month and next month. But now I want to try something new. And now I'm thinking about going back to like lightly drinking. I don't want to drink too much, but because getting out, you know, like you said, Eric, getting out of your head is, I don't want to fucking do yoga. I can't do yoga. I have to drink to do yoga because my head is screaming at me the whole time. Stop staring at the wall. You know, there you go. Eric, Aaron.
You need a goat for yoga anyway.
You do. You need a goat. I don't have a goat.
I was just gonna bring up two things, and one of them is gonna lead to like creative process. But a group that I really admire that may be overrated, underrated is if you ever see Slipknot and you see what they do behind the stage, it's fucking incredible. What I'm trying to get at is like you got to find that spark that made that creative drive happen and make you excited about your own shit again. Slipknot will get around in a big circle and they'll put their hands in the middle and they'll be like, there's a reason that we started this. There's an audience out there. This is all for them. You know, like all that rage and all that energy and everything that they express in their music, they bring it back to that anchor point and being like, this is why we do it. But then they also throw in some humor because it'll be something from the road, like somebody's costume or their gloves smelling like shit. So they'll rip on each other and he's like, let's go out there and give them a good show and fuck Craig's gloves on 3. And all of them will be like, 1, 2, 3, fuck Craig's gloves. And then they'll go out there and they'll just fucking murder and they'll do so good. But if I were to like corral that energy, I'm just saying like, you got to find something that really makes you excited about why you even got into it. And I don't know if that's something that you got to post on your wall or you got to tape to the fridge, but it's something to kind of keep you reminded of the energy that you want to put into something and why you're doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Always connecting with that grave, for sure, man.
And to that end, write everything down. And I know this sounds like beating a dead horse, but the whole I'm going to remember it later shit rarely happens. And I found more and more that I've come up with little ransom notes, so to speak, and they're literally stapled together because I got to a point where I had a few sentences here, I had a few sentences there, then all of a sudden down the path, it's another grim script idea, or it's a wicked story, or it's something that's completely badass, but you got to stitch it together as you go. So, like I said, I just wanted to throw that in there for consideration.
I love it. If anybody wants to jump in, just jump in.
I wanted to ask you something, Carl. It's probably a little bit out of place now because I know we are weighing right now. I always wondered, how did you come up with the album title Krankhaus? Because this is a very, very good play of words in German. How did you come up with that?
In Australia, there's a saying which is sick. That's fully sick, mate, or cut sick.
Yeah.
And it means to be excited about something. Sick means it's awesome. So cut sick means go nuts. I'm going to cut sick. You know, your gig was fully sick, mate. I sound a bit like a New Zealander just then. So, and crank also sometimes refers to volume. You know, crank it up. You know, heaps loud.
In the front.
Sorry?
With a C. Crank with a C. C-R-A-N-K.
Yeah, maybe, but, you know, also in German, krank means sick.
Yes.
And when the album was done, being written, I was living in an abode called The Rock House, Rockhaus, which I think's since been demolished. But it was a famous house in Sydney where that Riot Girls lived in there before I did, and then a bunch of bikies lived in there, and it was everybody who lived in there was crazily creative. And those girls ran a zine distro, and we ended up running a zine distro and the band, and we did a whole bunch of stuff for Sydney Gothic and all that stuff in that house. But it was always a really creative house. The house needed a party. It demanded having a party. And there's a whole bunch of percussion that are samples of the Rock House, and they're all on the K2000, like banging the gate, huge metal gate and all that stuff. But it sounded cool, and I know in German it's Krankenhaus,
Exactly.
but it's it wasn't really all that much about, and Rock House was spelled Haus, because it was raucous. But yeah, so it was we were going for something that meant more sick house as opposed to a hospital. So it was like it was all of this mash that came together. That, yeah, and it's so. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say it works very well because, as you said, actually it's Krankenhaus, which stands for hospital, but you can also say Krankhaus without the N in the middle, and then it is a sick house.
Yeah.
Literally. And I think it matches the whole concept of early Angelspit very well because there's a lot of a lot of medical horror and stuff. So yeah, really like it.
Thank you. I need to. There's a whole hidden area with Krankhaus that I've put it all online, but I don't think many people know about the whole backstory. That every person in that photo shoot is a character, and things are happening in each scene. That it's an induction into a cannibalist cult, and people are eating each other and they're taking shitloads of drugs, and I actually went into what was in the drugs, and they're all based on all of this stuff. After I researched hallucinogenics, like naturally occurring hallucinogenics and all of this stuff, and like the whole thing about the black wine was the hallucinogen. And the cover, Amelia's holding a cup, and inside that cup is black wine. And there's this thing, and it would actually, it would dye your skin, it would dye your muscles, it would dye everything inside you. Because there is a hallucinogen that does sort of alter colors of things temporarily. And that's why they were dining. There's a dining scene, and everybody is eating black food. Because the food is actually last month's inductees, and all of their meat has been dyed from the hallucinogen, and they're playing a game called Organ Flesh Poker, and that's what the song Juicy's all about. It's about taking drugs so you don't feel the pain, spinning the dice and cutting your limbs off, because this card might say take off your arm. And I actually wanted to, I designed the game that you could actually play this game. And the photo shoot's got the game in it. But it's all very fucked up.
In a cool way, though.
Yeah, thank you. And I do love the concepts. Like, every album's got a concept in it, like some thing going on. And it's been a nice thing that as Angelspit has moved forward, I've been allowed to do that, because not all members, Angelspit's had a lot of members, and not everybody who's been a part of Angelspit's, man, why are you wanking like this? And it's like, well, it's fun. These concepts and these ideas inspire the music, they inspire the lyrics, but they're also inspiring the visual aspect of everything, and the videos and everything else. So yeah.
I don't know how to explain how people come up with their crazy shit ideas. Like this fucker here is just batshit crazy.
Thanks.
And yeah, and this guy was clearly on hallucinogenics when he made his. And this guy had absolutely no creativity at all on the day until he got to the tape. But what amazes me is how you guys and girls finding yourselves artistically, and I'll shout out to Underminer with his graphic arts and his music, and I don't know what it is, and even if there was there's probably no logic behind it at all. It just comes out of Vincent, and it makes sense. If you were to take any other art and mix it with his music, it wouldn't make sense, but his makes sense. And when you look at Julius with his costume and his themes on the spider demon-y kind of wildness and his music, it just makes sense. And I don't think there's any way to explain how that comes about. There is no logic behind that. It just works. And I'm not trying to theorize it or make sense of it at all. I just love it. I love how individually you're all making your own art in many mediums, and it represents you. That's all I'm going to say. It's not a wah. It's just respect.
Thank you for not worrying, and also a shout out to Mike from the Basement Labs, aka The Liar, who did all those videos. He's nuts. If I can just, so I urge everyone to, when you're creating art, have a backstory, and people don't. You might not go out with that backstory. You might not show that backstory. You might not tell people about it. But when you are, people are looking at your art and listening to your music, there is a feeling that there is something else behind the camera, that there's something else behind the speakers, there's something else there. And music and art are insane because they have the ability to transmit something else. Because there are so many records that when I look at the art and when I see it, it's like this Massive Attack is an example. There is something else going on here. And Mike from Basement Labs is technically still in Angelspit because he never quit and I never fired him. And he helped out with a bunch of videos. That video wouldn't have happened without him, and a lot of that stuff, especially the stuff between each video, which only stays on the video, that's exclusive to the video, where he gave me a little camera and he told me to take 5-second videos of stuff. Go for a walk and just take 5. And when he put it together, he just basically played the video back because it was record 5 seconds, stop. Because this thing would only record 5 seconds because it was, old. Record 5 seconds, stop. He just played the whole thing back and it would play it back constantly. He put a drone under it and it was the creepiest fucking thing you've ever seen. It's really interesting how, how there's shit going on. Vincent, Julius, if you guys want to talk about your process and what's going on there, or anybody else, I'd love to hear about that. Talk about yourself. Go.
Absolutely. Do you want to go first, Vince?
You go ahead. I'll take a minute and put my thoughts together.
All right. I steal a lot. I have to say I steal a lot. There are certain artists I really, really love. For example, for the looks, as I previously mentioned, Lord of the Lost, this German gothic metal band who have a very certain style and very certain makeup, and I just look at it, I'm amazed, and okay, I said I steal it, but you always put your own, you always put something of yourself in it, so I think that's what every artist does, isn't it? Yeah, that's for the looks, and for the music, I honestly don't know. There's so much music and so many musical styles I like, and I try to make a union out of this and just compose what sounds right to me. And yes, and fun fact, because I'm talking of stealing right now, this week I'm going to work on my new music video, and what we are going to do will be stolen from some of the previous Angelspit videos, like all the VHS horror stuff and so on. Yeah, I hope I will do this justice. We'll see. And
that inspiration is interesting because it's almost like you want to open for that other band. That's your ambition, or be in that other band.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
You're talking about the other band that you kind of like.
Yeah.
Is there are you motivated to maybe open for that band one night, like be the first act before them, or be seen in the same genre, or maybe even be a future band member?
That's not going to happen. would be a dream, of course, to actually meet the band members and all, but I don't think I would fit into this band. Like, it's the band I was talking about, Lord of the Lost. It's a completely different genre. It is gothic metal, and they play their instruments. They have their bass guitar, electric guitar, drums, and are very professional in a way. I am not. And I'm such a studio musician. Actually, I can't play live instruments. I'm just not good at it. So it's not going to. It would be cool, but it's not going to happen. And another thing
Fair
I
enough.
wanted to say, and then I will shut up, about the image behind the camera and behind the speakers and all. I think some things just naturally come to you, and they build up in your career as an artist. I remember doing role plays like D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, but in text form and online, on online platform. And you had to choose a race. Like, are you human? Are you this or that? Are you mutant? And I automatically went for demonic being. So I was just drawn to that. And I created this character. And this very same character appeared in some manuscripts and novels and short stories I wrote. So yeah, that was like 15 years ago, and I feel it's just the same character or the same direction at least, which has developed until today. I'm done. Thanks.
Vince, go. I'm going to throw, because I want to ask you a question, but Vince, pucker up.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. My direction is kind of all over the place as far as what I do, because I started with music kind of early. I was 16 when I got my first guitar, and I'd messed around with other guitars that family members had before that a little bit, and I'm still not a great guitarist, but that's where I started. And I don't know. I don't consider myself too great at any of it, really, because I feel like I'll always be an amateur, because if I don't feel that way, then I'll get too full of myself. So I try to always approach everything as if I'm new to it. And I do everything very visually. So my visual art and my music fitting together is mostly coincidental. Musically, I just want to make something that creates a feeling. I don't care what that feeling is. Just feel something. And then I make visual art that I try to avoid making comfortable to go with it. Because I also don't necessarily want my music to be comfortable. It's the one feeling I try to avoid getting out of it is comfort. Because that's
So it's not coincidental. You're the common element.
yeah. Well, but to me, see, from the inside, I don't see it that way as I'm doing it. It just kind of all comes together for me, and there it is. It works. DJ Underminer is actually a name that came about, which is where a lot of my direction comes from, is the inspiration for my artist name. Underminer is the villain from the Disney movie The Incredibles. And the line he says at the end of the movie, it's his only scene in the whole movie, he says, "I am beneath everything, but nothing is beneath me." And I went, that is a strangely dark and accurate depiction of the human race. So I wanted DJ Underminer to be something that represents a darkness with a beauty to it. And I don't do performance. I've developed horrible social anxiety in my life, so I don't. This interaction here that I do with all of you guys is the most I interact with people, other than maybe once or twice a year I go out and do something. I stay home most of the time, and I do this, and I make music. So I don't, like, social media is all I've got that I connect to people through. So I try to make it as much of a personal display of my artistic vision as possible, because that's the part of me I want to present to the public. And since I don't perform, having it all tie together, I guess it works out in my favor, since I'm not really doing it on purpose. It just kind of happens for me that way. So I appreciate the compliment on how well it works together, because I'm never sure.
I have been enjoying your posts and your images on social media. Also, I will say that Underminer has one of my favorite lines ever, where he's on a rant and somebody interrupts him, and he goes, "Hey, I'm monologuing here," and I use that often.
That wasn't Underminer.
Who was it?
What is the guy's name?
That was the guy with the
Syndrome, the guy with the hair. Underminer only appears for a few seconds
at the end, right? Thank you. I need to work on my Pixar facts. Aaron, I have a feeling you want to speak.
A bit, yeah. To the end of, like, you know, people are like, you know, I get, if people have that feeling like they get lost in their own thoughts, or they're not overly social or everything. I don't know. I think it's like we spend so much time trying to compartmentalize our crazy that when you get a chance to broadcast it, I just think you got to go like full tilt, which sounds easier said than done, but, you know, just throw it out there, because I don't know, man. I get Rob kind of reminded me in a weird way, like he's like, where does all that come from? Or, you know, where does creative energy come from? I think it's just keeping track of daily random thoughts and stuff. So like I was hanging out with family and having a good old time, but then I thought about, what if we were playing frisbee golf? Wait a minute. What if the frisbee golf discs were table saw blades? Wait, what if the Reapers thought that frisbee golf was throwing table saw blades? And I was like, holy shit, I got to write this down. But I know that's wildly different from what you guys are talking about in the vein of music. But what I'm saying is, if you got crazy shit, like, you need to write it down, and you just need to like broadcast it and just go for it. I mean, I know I talked about sounding boards and stuff like that, but I think sometimes you just need to throw it out there, like Carl was talking about with the whole shoot behind Crank House, you know, and all of that madness and all of that video shoot. You know, you just gotta follow through with it and let everybody else kind of determine what they take away from it.
Awesomeness. Julius, why do you have your hand up? Just go.
Because I can. I have a general question for everyone, if we are done. It's a completely different topic. I'd like to know from all of you, do you consider yourself an introvert? And if yes, how does it affect you in your everyday life and your artistic output? Stage is yours.
Yes, I consider myself to be a hardcore introvert. I have about maybe 5 to 7 friends that I regularly interact with, and that's about it. Although I do find that for some reason, I guess I'm really polite, so a lot of people who I don't really consider friends or more acquaintances seem to really like me, and I don't understand that at all. But yeah, as far as my art, I'm still working on that, so can't really say how it affects my art.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. I am horribly introverted. I didn't used to be, really. Like in high school, looking back on it, it was a product of social anxiety then. My willingness to do anything to get somebody's attention, kind of thing. I was a bit wild, and once I realized that other people's opinions didn't matter as much to me as I thought they did, I kind of stopped talking to people. I don't. I've got 3 or 4 friends. I've got my family. I don't feel like I need to interact with people, so I don't, as much as possible. Like, that's the more I avoid people, the more my art stays contained to myself and is a more accurate representation of me, and less so my interactions with the rest of the world. I feel like being an introvert makes my art that much more personal, because I don't have as much influence from outside myself. I'm done.
I'll jump in. I also am horribly introverted, and I find as I grow older, my social anxiety is getting worse. I haven't performed on stage in years either. I used to love it, and now it's just more of my anxiety before a show is just through the roof. And I've always found that drinking was the way for me to get over
Whatever
it.
you want.
And
I'm gonna be down there soon too.
I'm 40 now, and just as I keep getting older and older, it's like that the drinking. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I can't. It's getting harder and harder. I've always been introverted. I'm also an empath. I take in energy very, very easily. I have a hard time processing it and getting rid of it. So people, for lack of a better term, drain me. Like I can be, like I'm fine. I can talk to them. I'm polite. But it takes me a bit to recharge my battery. So I'm constantly in my house. My wife always tries to get me out. She's usually the one. I don't make plans. She'll make plans and we'll do something, and I'll usually just tag along. If we go to a concert, I'll tag along. Unless it's a band I really, really, really want to see, I usually don't go out for that either. But yeah, it's social anxiety is crippling. It's difficult, and I feel more comfortable just being by myself in my basement making music and watching movies. That's it.
I think I'm not an introvert and I'm not an extrovert. I am a closet extrovert. Because, like you said, Eric, there are times where I'll be, most of the time I'll be too serious with myself, and I've got to do a sanity check every now and then and say, if I stay being this boring and serious, I'm not going to live my life. So there's certain things that I have to do to shake things up and break the mold. And whatever that is, it doesn't have to be, you know, drinking or anything like that, but just going out and having fun. Maybe it's doing something completely insane, like breaking water balloons on your head. Might be the thing that breaks the shell. And so I can never stop thinking about a couple of my buddies when I was a kid. We watched the Red Hot Chili Pepper video of them making their Blood Sugar Sex Magic album in this house, and they went totally nuts. You know, Flea's jumping around in his underpants, thrusting around, and you know, somebody else is banging on pots and pans. And I thought, being creative is getting out of your comfort zone to a large extent. It's stretching yourself and finding new ways to find you. And sometimes I've got to be with the right people to bust out of my shell and become an extrovert. It's like I'm nervous. I don't want to be in the public's eye. I don't want to be up front. But then when I get in the right mood and with the right click and the right environment, I'm ready to do stage theater and pretend I'm something completely different. And that's the variety, the spice that I need to keep myself going, because if I get stuck in being closed in and boring to myself for too long and being too technical, it's not fun for anyone. It's not fun for me. So I've got to find ways to break out of my shell a little bit and feel uncomfortable but not give a shit. You know, maybe it's go to some crazy event or a concert or something like that. That's all it takes. So I've found that I have to get myself to concerts, you know, at least once, twice a year, just to get out of my own head and break free.
I think I'm along the lines of Rob. Maybe the term is an extroverted introvert. So I'm quite happy to just stay at home or focus on a project and really hyper focus. But I get in the right crowd, in the right setting, and I can be interactive. I get kind of awkward around people and not know when to interject or how to be a part of the conversation. Being a part of this is getting me out of my comfort zone and speaking with others. So yeah, forcing myself into situations that might not be comfortable helps. I'm always perfectly happy to go back to my corner and read a book or focus on a project or something, but get me in the right group and I can interact just fine.
Awesome.
But don't do the water balloons on the head. That's just for crazy people.
Yeah, it's for the nutters. I'd like to follow that question up. And then I'll interject my answer is, how has the last 18 months of this changed you as a creative, as a human being, as an introvert? I don't know if I'm introverted technically or extroverted technically. I think technically speaking, I'm an introvert and a shit stirrer, because I won't talk about myself a lot. I'll talk about my creative stuff. It's not really me. It's funny, I'll talk about myself here, but normally I can't stand going out. I get anxiety walking out my door. And that's got worse over the last 18 months, a lot worse. I have a lot of trouble verbalizing how I feel. I have a lot of trouble talking. I have a stutter. And I've had this... My sister used to interpret for me when I was a child. Because no one could... Like, when I was a toddler, I had so much trouble forming speech. And now that I'm in the US, people don't understand me, and it drives me nuts. And then they mock my accent, and it really pisses me off. And I'm trying to, relay ideas. But I think that has made my music very angry and very aggressive, and my lyrics especially so, because it's the only way I can verbalize what I am trying to say, by meticulously working on lyrics and having a support of music around it that is furious. Because I'm angry as fuck. I know all of us are, and I know in the last 18 months we've all become so much more frustrated and angry. And it's interesting that I'm always trying to stay 1 or 2 steps ahead of falling into a rut. However, my brain needs process, but not falling into a rut is critically important for me. And the difficulty that I am facing, because I'm not going out, I'm not, I used to go and work for LA Opera every second week or something, or my wife's dance company or something, and I would be getting out and mingling with other human beings and as much as I can't stand other human beings. But I would be getting out, and I would be getting a coffee at a cafe, or all of this stuff. I had the first coffee, my first coffee like this week in 18 months. And as a result, I am getting in a rut, and it's taking itself out on my music, and it's taking itself out, and I'm ashamed to say that, I'm shy to say that, it's taking itself out on my process, and I'm in overdrive mode, trying to fight this rut, trying to fight this process, because of my is the word on the spectrum brain. You gotta have process, because if you don't have process, you fall apart, and I can't let go. I just can't. So and that's why I'm going crazy in the garden and doing all of these other things, is because it's pushing that process. But creatively, I am falling into a rut, and I am. I've finished all the songs for the next month and a half for Patreon. That's why I'm doing these improvisation things. I am showing myself naked in front of people, taking a risk, going, this could fail. Here we go. Live. Recorded. Live. And that's me smashing a water balloon on my head. And I've got plans in motion for what I want to do next, which is no more modular synths and just a sampler. just an Emacs. If my Emacs are all in the shop right now getting fixed, it's driving me nuts. But if they're back in time, I want to just sit down with a sampler and I want to record everything from scratch. I don't want to go through and process sounds. I don't want to do all this stuff that I did do meticulously. Excuse me. Now I need to bash stuff. I'm compiling things to hit and with the microphone, and I'm compiling all of this stuff that I need to smash my head over the head with a water bottle. That's it. With a water balloon. So, you know, I want to hear what you guys have to say about the introvert, extrovert, introvert thing. I want to know how it's affecting your music, just like the original question. But I also want to throw in there, how has the last 18 months changed you and your process? The floor is yours.
I'd like to answer my own question. I never stop learning about myself. My day job is at a library, and the team I'm working with are mostly introverts. And when I'm amongst them, I feel like I'm the most extroverted person there. And that made me believe that I kind of am an extrovert. And lately I got to work with some other people at another place, not in a library anymore. Completely different type of people, like 8 people around me being super extroverted. Like I come into the office at 8 a.m. and they're all like blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my god, leave me alone, I just arrived. And that again made me believe that I'm probably more of an introvert. Answer is, I don't know, I'm probably an extroverted introvert like Diana. That's how I would consider myself. And funny thing is, when I was amongst these extroverted people, I had to think a lot about you guys and about this round. And I actually asked myself, are these introverts? Like, there's always a certain group dynamic. And I think, yeah, I consider most of you introverts as well. And it's a completely different way of communication and a different way of how we interact with each other. And I found this very interesting. Yeah, and the past 18 months were tough, very tough, and I went through a lot of shit, and yeah, they definitely made me a lot more angrier as well, but not only... Carl, yes?
Do you live alone?
Yes, I do.
Holy shit.
Yeah, but I have really good friends, and especially during these quarantine times when COVID was very, very bad here in Germany, I had only these 2 people I met, and yeah, that actually was enough. Yeah, over the past 18 months, yes, there has built a lot of anger, but not necessarily in a negative way. I have built a lot of energy and a lot of creative energy, and I think if COVID would not have happened, I probably wouldn't make music right now and wouldn't have made the plans I made, like for example publishing my old novels and stuff, and going into business with writing and music and taking all this seriously. So yeah, that's it for me. I'm done.
Vince, what you got?
The last 18 months have been a little strange for me, because I feel like it's affected me somehow opposite the way it's affected most people. I have always really existed mostly between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 a.m. Like that was when I was doing the most stuff. And then COVID hit, and they started putting a curfew on everything, so everywhere's closed. So I couldn't do my shopping at a normal time anymore for me. So I had to be awake during the day now and sleep at night, so I was getting less done. The COVID lockdowns meant it was harder for me to get work done at home, because the hours I needed to be available to do work at home, I had to be asleep so I could run my errands during the day like a normal person, and that screwed me all up. I've not like I right before COVID hit, I was like, all right, this is when I'm gonna get down to it. I'm gonna produce at least an EP in the next 6 months, and then everything got locked down. I started having to be out doing stuff during the day and wasn't able to sleep hardly at all because that's the way my schedule was. I would sleep while my kids were at school. I'd wake up when they came home, and I'd go on about my day. And kids don't go to school anymore, so now I got to get up at 6 a.m. and get them into school and make it to a grocery store before they close at 6 p.m. and handle all the rest of the stuff I need to do around the house and whatever other errands I need to run. So the last 18 months, man, I had to be out of the house dealing with people more than I was before that because nowhere was open when there weren't people there for me to go do what I needed to do. So yeah, it's strange to think the pandemic made me have to deal with more people. But it's true. That's what happened. And that, I don't know how it affected my art as much as it affected my ability to take the time for my process. I think the art itself is still intact and very much unchanged because I still produce it the same way, but I've had less time to do it. So now that I've got time, I'm working on the EP and trying to crank it all out by October.
We need to make a group pledge about October. Like, I think all of us need a deadline. Just throwing
Make
it out
Halloween.
there. Halloween. All right.
Halloween's a good deadline because that's a good release date.
Yeah, and Mark,
especially for the kind of things we do.
I think, Mark, you should do a track.
Funny.
Come on. Let's do it.
I'll do one with you.
There you go.
I don't know.
Come on. Your
like,
idea.
I was gonna mention this. Like, actually, them ending the COVID restrictions actually messed me up because since I didn't have to physically go to work anymore, I could start my day later, and I could end my workday later because I didn't have to drive to and from work. So I'd wake up, grab some breakfast, start my workday while eating breakfast, and then I basically saved myself an hour of prep in the morning. And then I got to, once my work hours ended, I just stand up and go to a different room, and my work, no travel time. And now that's not a thing anymore. Now sometimes I need to stay late at work, so like my entire schedule is messed up. And also I could start cooking while at work too, so that would save me time on dinner prep. So I'm still trying to figure out my new schedule again, because I was actually starting to regularly work on stuff.
Well, I think you should hit up Vince. Give it a try.
I guess it can't ruin anything, right?
Yeah, the only thing that can happen is going to be good. Vince's music's fucking good. Vince, don't listen. He's very capable. So you guys should just kick it out. In fact, I think a lot of us should. I'm working with Aaron on stuff. We should just, fuck around.
Don't tell me not to listen. I like to come off the humble. I have very low self-esteem. Let me have that one.
He's very good.
What city do you live in?
New York.
Ah. Okay, yeah. So, Georgetown, got it.
Great. Then it's settled.
It doesn't matter when you message me or anything. You message me whenever. I'll get it and answer you whenever I'm awake. So I probably won't speak to your schedule anyway.
Okay.
Discord too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was probably mostly going to use Discord. It's easy.
Can you guys stick the Discord link in the chat here? Because I still can't find it.
I was supposed to do that and I didn't because I'm a bastard. I'm sorry, Rob. I don't actually know what the fucking link is. Like every time
I couldn't find it anywhere.
Every time I type in the link that I have, they go, no, I don't know what I don't understand Discord. Julius, I see your hand. Go.
First off, deadlines suck, and you can do your group without me. Sorry. And I totally feel what Mark said about the restrictions ending and messing up your timetable. This mostly free timetable, free in the way of that I can decide what I do when I want to do it. This free timetable actually showed me, first it showed me that I can work very well at home, and secondly, the lockdowns gave me lots of time to work on stuff and discover that music is fucking fun, and I want to make more music. Downside is restrictions ending, in day job going regularly, no more time. And actually all this COVID stuff has taught me to better manage my time and to work even harder. And yeah, because I had the time to make music, which is now lost, and so I have to make more time, actually.
Can I want to just say something on the time management thing, but we'll get back to that. Aaron, what do you got?
Raise my bony hand. I thought about, like, yeah, how fucking cool would that be? Like, Carl, you're talking about working with people. It's like, I think if people could do a collaboration or do a track, you could, like, debut it on MTV TV, and you could do something for October, you know, and just flood the channel with a bunch of badass stuff for October. That's my 2 cents.
Good 2 cents. Sorry, go ahead.
We could probably make something happen.
Cool.
Like, I think, I don't know. It's like, you know, I'll go back into the Lord of the Rings, you know. It's like you need that moment where it's like, you know, you have my sword, you have my bow, and you guys are musicians, so you could be like, and you have my tracks. See what I did there? Because it rhymes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And my bunny bracelet. IT crowd reference. Julius, I just want to say that it's so important, and I think I've harped on about this enough. Aaron, yes to that idea. Fuck yeah, let's do this. It's so important to be your own manager, and it's so hard. Like, you know, I will literally sit down once a week and have a meeting with myself, and where I will go, this week I need to get this done, or I will set up something, a database, a spreadsheet, something that is forcing me to hit a productive output. Because, you know, I register that I recognize that inspiration comes when it goddamn wants to, and it takes as long as it goddamn wants. But once I have the idea that the inspiration has laid the egg, I have to cook the egg or prepare the egg, or, you know, where this is an acronym, you know what I mean, is going, and acronym's the wrong word, I don't care, Sharon. That, you know, it's so, like I will sit down and go, okay, this week I am going to have this, and this finished. And I have a text notepad where I have, this week, these things are going to be crossed off. It would be good if these things will be crossed off, and these things down here are going to be burning away. Then the next week, they go up there, these go up here, and a whole bunch of new ones go down there, if you understand what I mean. That if I don't do that, I'm not going to hit the mark. And something else I wanted to say is that, you know, there's so much amazing visuals coming out of everyone now. I mean, it's hard because I was about to say try and get a photographer, but it's hard because COVID. Or at least you could set up or read about and research photography. Because I believe the visual representation of music is very important, because it is offering a part of the depth that's behind the speakers of that universe. That's all I got. Go.
Yeah. Vote for Dan. Yeah.
Who's Jen?
Dan. Vote for Dan. That's a reference from an old video. What was it? Yellowbeard. Anyway, yeah, going back to what you were talking about before, Carl, about your struggle and migration towards the risky live musicality in your electronic domain. I actually really love that stuff. I dig the effort that's gone into your creations, your music tracks and everything. But I honestly resonate a lot more with your completely spontaneous stuff that you make when you do your therapy sessions. And to me, I'm kind of across a couple of different genres. So I'm doing more the weird shit in electronica on my own, because I've been doing it for a long time, and that's what I love. But I'm also a metalhead at heart, and I can't do metal by myself. I play bass, I can play drums, I can do vocals, but I don't play electric guitar, which is pretty key. And so I end up collaborating with other artists who need those support elements. And doing the rock and the metal stuff is completely analog for the most part. And I've learned in the lockdown phase that I can't let my surroundings own me. And while working from home, I did start working on the desk behind me for work, and it tortured me while I'm working, looking around saying, oh, but I want to be doing something with that, or I want to be thinking about this, or I want to be playing with that thing. It was torturing the hell out of me that I'm actually working in my happy place. And so I moved to another room, and I went to a completely empty room, which happened to be the room where my kids are playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm now surrounded by miniatures and maps and books, and my mind started wondering that maybe this isn't the right place for me to be doing work either. I really need to get back to work, because that's where I turn on and off the work clock. And when I come home, I've got garden time, music time, whatever time, family time. And to me, working from home was a real struggle, because there was no dial. And one of my buddies back in Australia, who lives on his own in an apartment in Melbourne, he's got a very small 1-bedroom apartment in downtown Melbourne, and he's literally got his workstation on this wall with his own seat, his own headset, his own mouse, his own screen. And then on this wall, he's got his game development place where he creates for himself. And then over this bench, he had electronics and his drones and his remote control cars. And he said, oh, I need to buy another chair because this chair is my work chair and it's not my fun chair. And he had compartmentalized his entire apartment to be able to switch mindsets around the room for different hours of a day. And a little bit like Vince, he sleeps through most of the day and he's awake through most of the night. And he will, he'll sit there and he will have, a few drinks. I'm being generous to him, but he'll sit there and he'll be very creative for block time, and he'll always be chatting to me saying, hey, what's going on? Doesn't matter what time it is in the US. And he was not coping with COVID. Nobody that I know has coped with COVID. If they have, they're kind of fooling themselves. Things are changed. Things are kind of fun. Oh yeah, it's a Holocaust. La-di-da, it's the end of the world. This is new and fun. It's not the monotony of a work day. Well, that sort of wears off quickly when you hear about people dying and stuff. So it's like, yeah, this sucks. Having the change has been nice. Having the mind reset has been a good thing, I think. But I'm getting back into normal life again with my job, getting back into the office. And I've actually learned to not let my surroundings own me. And that includes the gear. I can't sit there and feel guilty that I should be using this piece of equipment. I've actually found it liberating to take a recorder out into the world and go sample stuff in the real world and then just use those samples and keep things really simple, and just be creative with one or two gadgets. Like, let's just use the K oscillator and these samples, and that's all I'm going to use. And I'm just going to fuck with it. And I'm not going to schedule it. I'm just going to do it when I feel like it. That has been fairly liberating for my mind, because otherwise long work days stuck at home has been a bit of a killer. So there it is.
Awesome. Speaking of somewhere different, Alex is taking a walk in the Black Forest.
Not the Black Forest, but the forest indeed.
Oh, that's fantastic. It looks so green. Wow, look at you. Look at you in your natural habitat. You're like this lion prowling the plain.
I just couldn't concentrate indoors, so here I am.
That's great. Congrats. So, Alex, if you want to put in, we'd love to hear from you. We've been talking about are you an introvert or an extrovert, and how that affects your art, and how the last 18 months in lockdown has changed your introvertedness and your music art making process. Stuff.
Well, I think I'm a mix of both. I can cope better with isolation than others, but I'm still not the best. And my productivity just went down.
Okay.
Not good.
We've made an October 1st deadline. October 31st, Halloween. Thank you. Halloween. That we're all just going to try and release something. And for everybody to keep an eye on the Discord, because, we could be, doing collaboratives on the Discord. So you should be a part of that. Yeah, that's what you should do.
Totally. I've been thinking about using your spreadsheet, because I have like 5 song ideas that I can transform into songs in relatively short time. And I think your spreadsheet with the BPMs and which percent complete is maybe a better tool than I would anticipate, because sometimes it's good to have something visualized.
Yeah, and it's also very mathematical. And it's also very management orientated, because I was kind of talking a bit about that before as well. It will help you manage it. Because it will go through and it will say, well, this song is actually this percent complete. And you just crunch some numbers and you'll go, well, therefore, if I'm adding 10% each week, it's going to take 10 weeks to finish this fucker. But
right.
Jump on it. Do it.
Hey, where's that spreadsheet you just talked about? Did you post that somewhere public?
I thought I did. I can't do that right now because my life's
I can
awful.
post it in Discord.
Yeah, please do.
Cool, thanks.
And not yet, but later, today.
Yeah, but thanks.
And if he doesn't, email me. Or if whatever, just remind me. Because I've posted it on the Patreon. I should do it again. So, unless anybody has any closing questions, apparently I threatened to send Diana a shit in the mail. What was that about? I threatened a bunch of people about that.
Yeah, you did. You did by July 1st. I don't know, when we started these conversations, you're like, if we didn't produce something by July 1st, you were going to send that in the mail.
Ah.
Because you know where all of us live. Because, well, mailing lists.
Yes. I think I need to crap into some envelopes. But the problem now is that, with the tariff thing going into the European Union, how do I, what tariff does a poo fall under?
Maybe just send chocolate pudding.
Yeah. Nutty chocolate pudding. There you go.
Vegemite.
Yes, Vegemite.
Put it in a jar of Vegemite and send it over.
There you go. Because they always say it tastes like shit. Oh, wow, that went downhill fast, but that's okay. That's how we. Yeah. So if anybody has any final questions or thoughts or anything like that, jump on in, and I'll just say I've appreciated this. It's sort of nice to just kind of talk.
Yeah, I think you got to take it on to learn something new this coming week. I did a couple of Udemy courses this week and learned how to use some new video software, and it creates little creative branches because you start to see, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do this, and you start to realize I shouldn't rely on everything that I already knew. I should start to learn more, and it opens up opportunities. So learn something new this week, even if it's a sexual nature. Just learn something new.
Brilliant. Anybody else?
I'll jump in real quick, Carl. I like the deadline. I've been working on a new EP. I was going under the the name Eric Nid, and I've started a whole new music thing called Hangin' Raven. It's Eric Nid was more. I don't like talking about myself like you were saying, so I don't talk about this stuff much. But that was more guitar-oriented, dark type stuff. This is completely electronic. I feel it's different than that, so I'm just starting from scratch and putting that on the shelf and starting this new project. So I like the deadline of getting that EP done. I have 6 songs that I've been working on. One of them's pretty much done. I sent Diana a demo a couple weeks ago from one of the songs. I feel strong about it, and I think I need this to maybe help push me out of my rut maybe I'm in. So yeah, I like the idea.
All right. Well, we should I did a video as well for that Excel sheet that helps you create your music. Somebody remind me to dig that up and talk about it. It would be very exciting and helpful. Anyone else?
I don't mind talking about spreadsheets.
I think all of us kind of like spreadsheets.
My job requires me to like spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets are hot.
Yeah, man, they can be pretty hot. I learned a while ago you can actually do full-on programming in spreadsheets. That's pretty sexy.
Wow, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah, there are full-on outfits and strap-ons for Excel now.
Yeah. And there's also Excel lube.
Only for the experienced.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a pun. Brian would think of
For
a
those
pun.
who need to excel.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Thank you, Mark. That was great.
If you're looking for something funny, speaking of lube, Walmart has released their own line of bedroom products. And just go look at them. It's hilarious.
Great. Excellent. All right.
You just got to open a whole bunch of new tabs in your life.
There you go.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all for being part of this. And let's right on to MTV TV. And then Space Couch is on in an hour. So we'll get some MTV TV, then we'll get some Space Couch. So
I have to rescue my wife. The last I heard her say 30 minutes ago was she was going to set a large pile of wood on fire in the backyard. I haven't heard any sirens yet, but she's a pyromaniac, and chances are she's probably on fire right now.
excellent. I will let you do with that, Rob. And everybody else, thank you. This has been therapeutic. Let's raid MTV TV. Go now. 24 hours non-stop music. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Bam.